Hi, and welcome to the No Experience. I'm Cherie No, and y'all, I have a story to tell you. If you want to come to South Korea during coronavirus, if you have family in Korea that you're trying to come see during coronavirus, or if you live in Korea like I do and are trying to get your family and friends to come to South Korea to visit you, this is the video for you. Buckle up, guys. Let's get right into the video. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I married a Korean and moved to South Korea a few years ago. And because of coronavirus, I have not seen my adult daughters in almost 2 years. And so they finally bought plane tickets to come to South Korea once the Korean government opened up some of its restrictions based on immediate family living in the country. But there's been some complications. So I thought I would share my story with you guys. So hopefully if you're trying to come to South Korea to visit your family, or if you live in the country and you're trying to get your immediate family to Korea during a pandemic, then these tips will help you. So the first thing that you're gonna need in order to come to South Korea is something called a family document. Now this is geared more towards if you are trying to have immediate family come to South Korea without self-quarantining, and I'll explain that more in a minute. So a family document is something that we don't have in America, but is something that is used and needed here in South Korea. So basically it's just as it sounds, it's a document that states who your immediate family is in South Korea. Since I am married to a Korean, I am added to my husband's family document. So he went down to the public office and got a copy of it, and we sent it to my children in America. The next thing that you'll need to do with that document is apply for your quarantine waiver to South Korea. Now the only way currently, as this video is recorded, that you can get a quarantine waiver document is if you have immediate family living in South Korea. Because my daughters have me as their immediate family here in South Korea, they're able to do this. The other major qualification, of course, is that they're fully vaccinated, which they are. Now, one of the things that I thought was going to be the most stressful part of this whole preparation was going to be waiting for that quarantine waiver, because you can't actually apply for it until there's a specific date based on when you are trying to come to Korea. And unfortunately, ours was only about a week before their flight, which for a person like me who likes to prep things way in advance really stressed me out. So here's what happened. My daughters applied for their quarantine waiver form, and then about 2 days later, the Korean government sent them an email back saying, please verify the rules and guidelines on what documentation needs to be sent. Like, that was it. It didn't say, hey, you're missing anything. It just sent like this generic message back to them. So I told my daughter to call the Korean consulate. Thank God she did, because that unclear email basically was a warning to them that they forgot something that they didn't know they needed, which was their birth certificates. So immediately she sent those in, and we thought, or we're in the clear. I'm going to try to make sure I get all of this information in for you, because this has been a very stressful week for me regarding this whole situation. But here goes. So the other thing that you need to make sure you're aware of, speaking of the consulate, is that you find the Korean consulate in America that accepts documentation based on your state. That's important. So fortunately, because my daughters live in the Pacific Northwest, the one that they needed was the Korean consulate in Seattle, Washington. Now, once my daughters sent in their birth certificates, then it was only, I think, a day or two later that they finally got their quarantine waiver forms. So again, we thought we were done with this whole thing, everything was fine. However, the next thing they need to do with just a maximum of 3 days before their flight to Korea is to get a COVID test.
It cannot be
any more than 3 days before your flight to Korea. And it needs to be the COVID PCR test, which my daughters made their appointments. They went and got their COVID test. And wouldn't you know it, one of my daughters tested positive for coronavirus 2 days before their flight to Korea. Now, immediately, I started panicking, but here's the thing. We also started to really assume that it was a false positive, because my daughters both are fully vaccinated, and as I am an ex-nurse and medic, they are very keenly aware of how important it is to be vigilant when it comes to their health. So I immediately made my daughter take a retest. This only gave her hours before her flight to South Korea to receive the PCR test back. Thank God it was negative. And she also did a rapid test to verify that on her own, and both were negative. So again, We assumed. We're in the clear. Everything's fine. Tomorrow they're getting on that flight to come to see me in South Korea because, again, I have not seen my children in 2 years because of coronavirus. Boy, was I wrong. So, in the wee hours here in South Korea and in the early morning in America, my daughters called me from the airport saying they are being turned away. Because apparently a new guideline in South Korea had just started that we were unaware of because, again, the information on the Korean consulate websites is not clear and it's very confusing, and the Korean consulate of America and the Korean consulate of Seattle had different information and it was very confusing. But anyway, my daughter said that their flight was rescheduled for tomorrow because apparently they now have to apply for a visa, which, FYI, if you've never been to South Korea, you might not have known this, but Americans have never needed a visa to go to South Korea. I've been there multiple times before I even met my husband, which is why we didn't think about it because we've never needed one before, but apparently you need one now. So anyway, my daughters go home. We're all crying. We're all quite sad. We've been waiting a long time to see each other. They go online. They fill out the information. We get it done. You pay $10 a piece. And fortunately, they got the visa in less than 24 hours, which was good because their flight was leaving in less than 24 hours. Now it's yesterday, and they go back to the airport once again thinking that they are all set to go. They have their visas, they have their passport, they have their quarantine waiver, they have their COVID negative tests, and they get turned away again because apparently they need to have their middle names on their visas because that's what's on their passports. Now again, keep in mind two things. One, Americans almost never use our middle names for anything, so that's not something that would come to our mind. And two, we've never had to apply for a visa before, so that's not something that came to my daughter's mind as being important. And number three, there was no box on the online visa application for your middle name. So my daughter's flights have been rescheduled again for tomorrow to come to South Korea. But here's what I predict is what's going to happen tomorrow, and there's nothing I can do about it today. Because of all of this turning away, going home, turning away, rescheduling their flights, when they go to the airport tomorrow, I am about 90% sure they're going to be turned away again because, can you guess why? Because now their COVID negative PCR tests are more than 3 days out from their flight. And it's too late to get a new PCR test done. Aside from the fact that the last one cost us $90 the first time and $150 the second time, because they're not free in America, if you guys didn't know. They're only free is if it's for medical reasons. If it's for flight, you have to pay out of pocket. This has been one of the most stressful weeks of my life. So as of the making of this video, I don't know if my daughters will make it to Korea. Hey guys, editing Cherie here. I thought I would let you know that I was correct. Yesterday when they went to the airport for their millionth time, they were once again turned away because their COVID test had now expired. So they now have reservations again to come to Korea today, and my daughter just emailed me a few minutes ago to let me know that both of their retests for COVID are negative. So there literally should be no reason why those girls are not on the airplane tonight to come to South Korea. So I will update in the comments if that did not happen, but otherwise they should be coming. I'm making this video, one, for posterity for myself, but two, as a cautionary tale to any of you that are trying to come to Korea to visit friends or family. Make sure that you have all of these ducks in a row. So I hope everyone is able to visit their loved ones during this difficult time safely. Now, if you are trying to come to Korea and you don't have friends and family here, it is possible if you are fully vaccinated, but you do have to quarantine and you do have to pay for the Korean government quarantine. It's pretty costly. But in order to not quarantine currently at the time of this video, you need to have immediate family here, and I wish you all the best, and I really hope that you don't have any of the same problems we've had, because every day that it takes for my daughters to get here is one day less I get to spend with them, and I have not seen them in 2 years. So Anyway, I really hope that this video is informational to you all. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. But otherwise, when my daughters do eventually get here, there will be a lot of great new videos for this channel, exploring South Korea and bringing you a lot of interesting, fun vlogs about South Korea. So until next time, y'all, stay classy, YouTube. Bye.